So good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sunday School. Today's subject matter is preparing for incarceration, something that a lot of us either have to prepare for or potentially have already endured. So I've got a short presentation. Sadly, Lee Chappelle from Canadian Prison Consultants is not able to make this morning's session. It looks like he's come down with a little bit of COVID. He may pop in a little bit later, but in the meantime, we will get started with kind of an overview of the best practices for preparing for a term of either provincial or federal incarceration. So I'm going to share my screen. Fantastic. Can someone just turn their mic on and confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so here we are, October 1st. We're going into preparing for incarceration. So the gentleman that was supposed to be with us this morning, Lee Chappelle, operates something called Canadian Prison Consultants. Lee spent 20 years in custody in all of these either provincial or federal facilities. Francis is Lee's assistant. Francis will take your call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, maybe not 24 hours a day, but we'll take your call 7 days a week. We'll give you a free consultation. And she is just a truly amazing woman. She will take a ton of notes and set things up for discussion with Lee. Lee charges $350 an hour, but his initial consultation may take 2 to 3 hours, and he will only charge you one flat fee for the $350. So no worries about spending $1,000 on this if you don't have it. The phone number is there, and I will also email you his contact details after this presentation is complete. But what Lee does is he puts together a prep package, which includes proactive preparation for the pre-sentence report, and then he gets in touch with your defense counsel and kind of puts things into layman's terms. He will contact either the provincial facility or the federal facility that you are going to serve your time in. And he is well acquainted with people in many of these facilities. And he will do his best to ensure your kind of safe arrival and safe stay. He'll set up rehab programs if necessary and give you a sense of what to expect when you are kind of checking in and how long you should kind of expect to take, either if you're doing an interim provincial stint and then moving to a federal facility, or if you are just spending your time at a provincial facility. For those of you who are not aware, if you are sentenced to 2 years less a day, you will spend that in a provincial facility. And if you are sentenced to a term of longer than 2 years, then you will go to federal. In our discussion, Lee mentioned that if you are charged with or convicted with a sex offense, you will likely be transferred to Joyceville, which is the facility that handles anything to do with sexual related crimes. And he mentioned that at Joyceville, about 10 kilometers away from Joyceville, there is a Home Hardware. And if you send an e-transfer to that Home Hardware for $300, they will deliver a flat screen TV, a desk lamp, a cable splitter, the appropriate cable, and so on and so forth, so that you have kind of a comfortable stay in your cell. If you are incarcerated federally, you have your own space. If you're incarcerated provincially, you will have to share your space with at least one other person deemed cellies, and potentially 2 other people, as the provincial facilities are very overcrowded. In addition to that, Lee will explain kind of what your legislative inmate rights are and how they apply to you, and your sentencing details and rights to protection services. And we'll touch on that later. When we get into when you check in, do you check into general population or protective custody? But Lee covers that. And I suppose what to expect from like the moment you're handcuffed and placed into custody. Lee gives you kind of a clear visual of each step, detailed routines that are applicable to both jails and prisons. He gives you an overview of the correctional assessment process, how institutional placements work, and where you can request to go, or where you may be forced to go. How to navigate prison politics and the institutional subculture, inmate etiquette, which we will get into. I've got a little presentation for you with the top 50 things not to do in jail if you want to avoid getting into a fight or getting hurt. And then Francis also provides personal counseling services, and hopefully it'll give you a much better understanding of what the kind of prison experience is. In addition to that, Lee talks about the 4 pillars of effective parole and how you can set yourself up to go on parole, or to be approved for parole as soon as possible. So for those of you who have spent time inside or who have been convicted, you will understand, or you may understand, if you've been given a parole officer. For me, for example, I was sentenced to 9 years. And what that means is, in terms of the amount of time that you spend in a federal facility, you are eligible for day parole in 2.5 years. You are eligible for full parole in 3 years, or at least I would be eligible for full parole in 3 years. And no matter what, even if I'm a complete asshole and just rip the place up, I am out on parole in 6 years. So a lot of people don't understand that component. You think you're going to be in custody the entire time of your sentence. That's not the case. So you're available or eligible for day parole at 1/3 of your sentence, less 6 months. You are eligible for full parole at 1/3 of your sentence, and at 2/3 of your sentence, you are out on parole no matter what, unless you commit further acts of violence inside the jail. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at for Lee. We're going to jump into kind of the some guidelines for what you should do before you were incarcerated, and also some guidelines for what to do when you were incarcerated to keep you safe. So the first thing you might consider doing is setting up a landline with someone you know who will accept collect calls. For anybody who's spent time incarcerated, you know that there are payphones inside the jails, and they don't accept coins or quarters or anything like that. You can pick it up and dial a number, and the person on the other end must be willing to accept the collect call. In addition to that, you can't call a cell phone. So even if you have someone's cell phone memorized, the jails will likely not let you connect with a cell phone. You must have a landline set up. So that's something to think about in advance of incarceration. Number 2, if you are going to a provincial facility, you are going to be wearing an orange jumpsuit. If you're going to a federal facility, you're allowed to wear your own clothes. So if you are going federal, it's important to pack a bag with your own clothes, which can be shipped to a federal facility. This can also include books that you want to read, but good to have your own jeans, your own shirts, your own underwear, like all that kind of stuff, so that you are more comfortable rather than sitting around in whatever they give you. When you surrender, bring some money with you. It'll be credited to your canteen for purchases when you are incarcerated. And that could include, paper to write on, books that you want to read, snacks, pencils, pens, any number of things that are available from canteen. But bringing a little bit of money with you will be put directly into your canteen. You may not have access to it for the first 5 to 7 days, just because the jails are that slow, but eventually you will. Somebody else can certainly put money into your account from the outside, but if you bring some in with you, it will expedite that process. This is what we were talking about earlier. When you surrender, you can ask about protective custody versus general population. Protective custody is important, especially if you've been charged with or convicted with a crime involving sexual assault. So you'll be placed on a specific range within the jail or prison with other inmates with similar charges, which may be less risky than being in general population. So making sure that you're aware that you can ask to be in protective custody. Here are some rules for when you're inside. Don't whistle. Whistling is largely interpreted as one of two things. Inmates will get pissed off if you whistle because birds whistle and birds are free and you are not. Whistling will piss off other inmates, as some of them will think that you're either communicating with either the guards or other inmates. This has happened in the past. A whistle could mean something. And we'll get to kind of setting up relationships with other inmates and the guards in a second, but whistling is definitely a big no-no. Something I learned very early when I was incarcerated pre-trial. Do not be a snitch. I'm sure you've heard the little rhyme, snitches get stitches. Don't snitch. Do not befriend the guards. I guess, sorry, go back to that. If you are perceived to have befriended the guards, other inmates may take action against you when the guards aren't present because they think you're trying to get favorable treatment. Some etiquette pieces. Don't sit on someone else's bunk without permission. This is perceived as quite rude. It might seem fairly normal to sit on someone's couch when you're on the outside, but don't sit on someone else's bunk. That's their space. So don't do that. Don't cut in line. Don't forget to say please, or don't forget to say thank you. Effectively just try and remember to be polite as much as you possibly can. Do not steal. This is, obviously inside or out, we're not going to steal, but this is something that can lead to definitely negative things. Don't borrow a fellow inmate's prescription medication. I've seen this on the inside. People would trade medications. Some people would have false diagnosis of mental health issues, and they would, get their, when the medical officer came around to kind of dispense the daily regimen of medication, they would take that medication and trade it for something else, or they would crush it up and snort it to try and get high. But don't borrow anybody else's medication. That could be potential trade value, and you don't want to be in debt to anyone. Do not make every inmate your friend, and do not make no inmate your friend. So it's important to have kind of a balanced relationship with people. There are going to be people in there that you connect with, and there are going to be people in there that you don't connect with. Don't try and connect with everybody and be everyone's best friend. You will lose credibility with everybody if you do it. Also, don't be a loner. So it's important to have a couple of people that you connect with inside, both for your kind of social interactions, and like if you haven't already been incarcerated, you will see that on each range, and the range is kind of like the open area of a cell block, but on each range there will be certain cliques of people who kind of connect with each other and sit and play cards or play games or work out together or go play basketball together or cut each other's hair or whatever it is. Do not fail to maintain the cleanliness of your area. This is really important, making sure that you keep your area clean and tidy. Can piss off other inmates if your area is a mess and everything else is clean. Do not fail to courtesy flush. This is kind of a simple and maybe intuitive thing, but Don't fail to courtesy flush as soon as you use the toilet. Flush so that it doesn't stink up, especially if you're in a cell with multiple other inmates. It can be very offensive. Um, don't make loud noises after lights out. When lights go out, it means everything is quiet so that people can sleep. So this is one of the most kind of egregious behaviors that will piss off everybody on your range if you're making loud noises after lights out. Don't abuse phone privileges. Don't sit on the phone all day and prevent other inmates from being able to access the phone. Don't abuse email privileges. Some institutions will allow you to email. Most will not have access to the internet because, as Lee mentioned, if they do provide internet access, then people have in the past set up drones to drop off contraband in the yard. So they've just kind of completely limited any internet access. But you may be able to access a computer to do writing. And in some cases, you may be able to access an email address, which is secure through the prison, and you're able to communicate with people outside that way. Don't fail to take the classes that your unit counselor recommends. So if you are federally incarcerated, there will be rehab classes or kind of workshops that you can take to better yourself while you're incarcerated. Make sure that you take the stuff that you are required to take. If you don't, that will affect your likelihood or probability of parole. Don't fail to take advantage of educational opportunities. This is also important there, especially for periods or for terms of federal incarceration. There are educational opportunities in the federal system that do not exist in the provincial system. So take advantage of every educational opportunity you have. Effectively, you don't want to be a bump on a log. You don't want to sit watching TV all day or just lie down and do nothing. You want to try and make the best of the time that you're incarcerated. And education can be a big part of that. Don't forget to write your family and friends. When you're on the inside, receiving letters and sending letters is something that is incredibly valuable and keeps you connected to the outside world. So making sure that you remember to connect with your family and friends through letters, I think, is maybe somewhat of a lost art, but I think it's a great way to communicate. Don't fail to call your family and friends. Let them know that everything's okay, or let them know what's going on. And don't fail to plan for your future after you've served your time. So this is also very important. A lot of people tend to lose hope. It's important not to lose hope and not to lose faith that this will one day be over, and you can move on afterwards. Don't touch another inmate without their permission. Fist bumps, handshakes are okay when everything's above board, but don't touch other inmates when they're not expecting it. Don't ignore your physical health, and don't ignore your mental health. There are, a few things that you can do when you are incarcerated. One of them is workout and, improve your physical stature, your body. And the other is you can read and learn. So making sure that you keep in mind both your physical health and your mental health on a daily basis are very important. Don't fail to go to the dentist. Dental health is important, and make sure you brush your teeth every day, and make sure that you maintain your personal hygiene. Don't get into a fight. Sometimes this may be an element that you can't control, but don't proactively pick fights. Sorry, I think I can hear someone who may not be muted. If you're not muted, could you please mute yourself? Thanks. Don't change the TV channel to something you want to watch without permission from other inmates to change the channel. This can quickly put you into hot water. Some people think nothing of it. Maybe they think that other people aren't even watching it, but they may be listening to it, or maybe something that habitually is on every day, and people are just used to it. And if you go in and change that channel, you'll likely cause some level of controversy. Don't sit in someone else's chair. Don't brag about what you have outside, um, or what you don't have outside. Just don't brag. It'll tends to piss other people off, especially if they have nothing, and can put you in a situation where you are potentially going to be a higher risk for getting involved in a conflict. Don't brag about your crime, and don't tell everyone you're innocent if you are not. A lot of people will, on the inside, will tell you that they're innocent, um, but the people who go off and kind of wax poetic about it tend to be a little bit on the annoying side. Don't forget to read. um, do not. Sorry, guys. Can you mute yourself, please? I'm just in the presentation, and I can't mute you from here. Um, don't forget to read, and do not tell people not to visit. I know a lot of people have a sense of shame about being incarcerated, but this is a good piece of sound advice. Um, if they want to come visit you, that's their contribution. Um, and I felt the same way. I didn't want anyone to come in and visit me and see me in that situation. But it kind of takes it takes the ownership, or it takes the agency away from that person who is trying to help you and make you feel loved. So don't tell people not to come visit you. Don't forget to, or I guess don't not, or I suppose just maybe the double negative makes it positive. So make sure you make amends with the people that you hurt. And this is important. It's part of many of the 12-step processes, but also important in terms of connecting with the people who you may or may not have hurt as a part of your healing journey. Don't fail to shower. Stinky inmates piss other people off, and you will quickly be ostracized. I found this when I was incarcerated for even a short period of time. I think the longest period that I was in was for 17 days. But there was one guy who just wouldn't shower, and he was quickly ostracized. Don't borrow things from other inmates, especially if you fail to give them back, because then you'll be in their debt. If you're scared, do your best not to show other inmates how afraid you really are. And this is really just a self-preservation technique. If you're not scared, then it's not a worry. A lot of people are worried, especially for the first couple of days or even couple of weeks that you're incarcerated. You're in a very different environment, but do your best to kind of put on a brave face and make sure that you are not kind of showing the fear that you feel inside. Don't verbally insult another inmate, and don't verbally insult a guard. This will quickly get you written up if you insult a guard, and will affect your probability of parole. And verbally insulting another inmate can quickly lead to an escalation and to a fight. So it's best practice not to verbally insult other inmates or guards. Staring at people is often seen as an act of intimidation. So don't stare at other inmates. Don't be disrespectful or rude to anybody, and do your best not to lose your temper. I know it is a traumatic experience, and you will go through certainly a traumatic experience while you're enduring this process, but try and do your best not to lose your temper. You can practice breathing techniques. You can do some meditation. Whatever it needs to do, or whatever you need to do to ground yourself. If you do get time out, either in kind of the workout area or in the yard, getting out and kind of doing some breathing in the fresh air is often very important. Do not fail to walk away from a situation that can only lead to trouble. Sometimes when we are traumatized, we're easily activated, and I know that I'm guilty of this. But it's important to maintain your composure and walk away from situations that may lead to escalated conflict. And don't fail to realize that people on the outside are waiting for you to come back, waiting for your return. Do your best not to cry in front of other inmates. Do not complain about the length of your sentence. Do not complain about the length of someone else's sentence. If you feel that someone else got a better sentence or a lower sentence than you do, or you did, don't complain about that. I think effectively just don't complain. But just be cautious about kind of juxtaposing your own situation against somebody else's and saying that you got a bad deal and someone else got a better deal. So that's effectively it for kind of the top 50 tips for before you are incarcerated and when you enter the facility. Just going to close this down. If you have questions and you don't want to be on camera, you can put them in the chat, but we will open up for Q&A now. The other thing I'll do is I'm going to put 3 resources, both Lee's website, which is CanadianPrisonConsulting.com, Prison Professors, which is out of the US, and families.co.uk, which is out of the UK. I'll put those in the chat now. All of them have 50-page downloads of kind of like the top 10, top 20, top 50 resources. Maybe I'll put them in one at a time so that they're not all bunched up like that. Sorry. There's one. There's 2. There's 3. Okay. Anybody have any questions that they want to put in the chat? Or do you want to raise your hands? Or would you like me to stop the recording and we'll just go to an open source Q&A afterwards? Okay. So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat and no commentary so far. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks very much for being here. I hope you got a little bit out of that very brief presentation, and we will start Q&A now.